Hey guys, welcome to the comments section with Coach Adam. Today I'm going to be going over the comments from our last podcast video, answering your questions. If you want to get your question answered, just leave it in the comments section and you might end up on one of these videos. So let's just jump right into it. This is from our last podcast on YouTube in the comments, so leave your comments there and I'm going to get to a few of these every week. Our first question comes from Sierra Rosalind. She says, I have a very serious question, capital very serious. You guys have mentioned multiple times that Ashley relies on things like sugar-free drink mixes and sugar-free gum. Do you track the calories in those products? They seem pretty insignificant on their own, but can add up throughout the day. So to answer your question, yes and no, they do matter and they don't. So the first thing is, if you're having, a couple pieces of gum and a little bit of sugar-free ketchup, things like that, some hot sauce, and it totals out to, let's say, 30 calories extra throughout the day, I don't think that's going to be a make or break thing. If you're not winning first place because you ate an additional 30 calories every day, I got some news for you. It probably wasn't the 30 calories. It was probably something else. Now, the argument, though, that you can just eat sugar-free gum and sugar-free ketchup and hot sauces without any taking into account of how many of those calories are adding to your day, that is not a really smart argument. So, volume matters, yes. Now, if you're doing, let's say, 5 calories per piece of gum and you're having 2 packs and it's 20 pieces of gum, right? We're talking an extra 100 calories a day. Over the course of a week, that's 700 calories. Now, me personally, I would rather have 700 calories as a free meal and maybe have, a fat-free yogurt or something like that for those 700 calories than 10 pieces of gum a day, but it's up to you on how you want to spend those calories if you even have a free meal. But if you're doing that many calories, where let's say you're doing 100 calories from gum, you're eating a lot of sugar-free ketchup, your sugar-free drink mixes have an additional 5 calories, you're doing 4 of those a day, you're doing salsa, that's 25 calories or so, and you're like, oh, these calories just don't matter. You're overdoing it on the veggies a little bit, and you're like, oh, these calories don't matter, it's just veggie calories, whatever, right? Yeah, that can add up to quite a bit throughout the day. If you added all those things up, you might get an extra 150, 100, 200 calories a day. And if you're one of these smaller people, let's say you're a 5-foot, 100-pound bikini competitor, and your end of prep calories are closer to that 1,200 marker, but you're having an additional 150 or 200 calories from these calories that you don't really see, well, now you're eating an additional 10, 15% more calories. Now, the hard part of it as a coach, where it really becomes an issue, is for the coach. The hard part is, we're giving you, let's say, 1,200 calories. We're like, man, I don't want her to go any lower in calories because we already have her pretty low. I don't want her to have to really be starving for this prep and really hurting herself to get in stage shape. But in reality, the whole time you've been eating 1,400 calories, and the coach thinks you're eating 1,200 calories, and they're not willing to go any lower, or they don't want to go any lower, and the whole time you're just kind of eating 1,500 calories, right? Because of these extra things that you don't see. So that's where it really becomes a thing. There's a disconnect on your calorie consumption and what you think your calorie consumption is and what you're reporting to your coach. So I would say, if you're keeping it really, really light, it doesn't really matter. If you're going to the, 1 pack, 2 packs of gum a day, salsa, sugar-free, this, all that, yeah, tell your coach what you're doing, count those calories, send them in, maybe send them in the comments to your check-in and say, hey coach, I have been having an additional 100 calories from these things a day. Now, I have had people before in the past who cut those things out and all of a sudden started making progress. They were becoming aware that these little snacks they were having were adding up to a lot of calories. I said, you know what? For 1 week, don't have any of these little extras, any of the little gum, the little snacks, the little whatever. And all of a sudden, the results started coming in. And she realized that she was eating over 200 calories more a day just from those little snacks and little bites that she had when she was giving them to her kids. So that does happen. Next question comes in from Rachie Demp. She says, do you know if they also spoke to the judges in Europe? It seems like there's just a slight disconnect between the U.S. and EU shows and the European shows. So what she's referring to is, in the last podcast, I talked about, I was lucky enough to get a phone call from JM, and he talked about the conditioning of the girls and the judges all being on the same page, and it not being so crazy striated anymore, and the girls coming in fuller and not needing as much of a tight conditioning. And it took a while for all the judges to get on the same page of that and not keep rewarding tighter and tighter and tighter conditioning. So if you look at the last Arnold, you could see, hey, the girls were a little bit softer. They're accepting a softer look. They're not wanting to go super, super hard anymore. And she's talking about, well, why are the judges in Europe not going with that same thing? Well, remember, the judges can only go off of what is available there, right? So the problem is, if you have, let's say, 20 bikini pros competing in Europe, and none of them are bringing a softer level of conditioning, they're just bringing that ultra hard look of conditioning, the judges have no choice. They have to pick someone who's with that harder level of conditioning. So that's the thing, is it takes a little while, and there's going to be some shows throughout the year where a really hard girl wins, and everyone's like, why'd she win? They said they weren't going to be going with this extreme conditioning anymore, but a girl with extreme conditioning won. Well, the reality is, even if she was a little too tight, and the judges after the show will tell her, hey, you're just a little too tight, we need you a little softer the next time, she still, even with being a little bit too tight, was still the best one there. And that happens, and it throws people off. It also throws people off in the other direction when a girl wins who's a little bit too soft. And the judges say, hey, you're going to have to tighten it up a little bit for the next show. But she was the best one there. Stage presentation, hair, makeup, tan. The physique was there, but maybe just a little too soft, right? They're still going to give her the reward if she's that much better than everyone else, even with softer conditioning. So things get thrown off a little bit, but they're still picking the best from what they have available in front of them. So just take that for what it is. You know, it really depends on who shows up. But it does seem to be the consensus now. It's not going to be as crazy sharp conditioning. You're not going to be seeing those girls who are crazy strided winning these shows. They're not going to be getting any tighter in bikini. They kind of drew the line here. They want a fuller look, a little bit, no, I wouldn't say crazy softer or anything like that, but a little bit softer. They're not going to be rewarding etched tie-ins and separated hamstrings and things like that. So I think that's a great thing for bikini. Bikini is the intro level division for bodybuilding for women, and I think it needs to stay that way. It needs to be obtainable, and it needs to be obtainable realistically if girls put in a good effort naturally, and I think that that's the important deciding factor between them. And our next question comes in from Bobby C. So Bobby C actually put this question out. It had 59 likes to this question and 6 replies so far, and it was just a few hours ago where this was posted up in the on the YouTube video. And it's a spicier question. She says, would you do an episode on bikini competitors and PEDs? Someone said 95 to 98% of bikini pros use PEDs. It seems strange that no one speaks of it. It's not illegal in this sport as it's not an Olympic sport, but why not? I think it would be fair for people to know the reality or not of using PEDs in bikini. Okay, so let's jump into the PED question, since 60 of you, it looks like, want to get more into that. So are PEDs used in bikini? Absolutely. People use them. Are 95, 98% of pros using PEDs? No way, not that many. Now, here's the thing. This is kind of a hard one because we have to go into, okay, how many are actually using it? It's hard to say how many are actually using it. My assumption would be over 80% of people doing well in bikini are using PEDs. But here's the thing about bikini. You run out of the ability to build muscle at a certain point. You know, and as a coach, what I can say is I've had a few athletes, and I have a few athletes that can't use performance-enhancing drugs for building muscle any longer, right? Because they have so much muscle that they can't get any bigger. So my option for those bikini pros or for my athletes that are amateurs that are saying, hey, I want to do PEDs or not, if they have enough muscle, they don't really need to do anything like anabolics anymore. And the most common ones are going to be, you know, oxandrolone, anavars. Winstrol is becoming more popular, but I'm not a huge fan of it. SARMs, you're seeing Osterine, LGD 4033. You're seeing a lot of different things. Those are like the common ones, and then in prep, clenbuterols and things like that. Now, here's the thing that you run into with bikini, and this is one of the reasons I really like bikini, is at a certain point, you're going to have enough muscle where your choice is going to be this. And I've given this choice to a few bikini pros already, and amateurs. I said to them, okay, you can continue to take PEDs if you want to take PEDs when you get ready for shows, but the problem is during your off seasons, we can't get you any bigger. So you have the option of basically not taking anything anabolic, any anabolics anymore, and just prepping naturally, and then you can work out all your off season as hard as you want because you're not going to get bigger than the division needs to be. Or if you wanted to continue to take PEDs during your preps, we know you're going to get bigger than the division needs you to be, so we need you to like kind of basically take it easy in the off season and not really work out with doing anything super intense because you're going to get too big for the division. Almost every single time, I actually can't even say almost every single time the bikini competitors have said, I'd rather work out. I love working out, and if that means I can, you know, I'm not going to get any bigger than this, but I'm going to make improvements in density and whatnot, and I can just keep working out and not get bigger than the division, I'm just going to do that naturally and not get any bigger than the division. So that's the good thing about it. Now, are they still going to use things like clenbuterol to get leaner or maybe anti-estrogens and things like that? It depends on their labs and whatnot and how their genetics are. But the cool thing about bikini is that you can get too muscular where you don't need them anymore, right? So you run into that. You'll never run into that in bodybuilding and things like that. Obviously it's always going to be more size. To keep that much size, you need PEDs, that type of thing. With bikini though, you can keep that max level of size that you need in bikini. Most girls can keep that size naturally. So whether you get there naturally and you take 5 years to get there, it is a lot of muscle. So that's the one thing I will say. It's a lot of muscle. So if you've been working out for 10 years, you probably have enough muscle to be a natural bikini pro in terms of overall muscular development, right? I don't know if your conditioning will get there without without things like clan and anti-estrogens and not. It's very genetic dependent if you can get that lean, but it's not an absolute for most. So the 98% bikini pros taking PEDs, I don't think that's accurate, because you run into the problem of having too much muscle, and you run into girls who are staying really good on their diet. They don't need to take clenbuterals or anti-estrogens or anything like that to get in stage shape. And you can see the girls who are staying lean all year, that have been working out for a long period of time, they really don't need to take that much. It's absolutely not a requirement, but are a lot of them taking them? Yes, absolutely. I would say probably in the 80% range, but I know a lot of natural Olympians too. And do they struggle against girls that are enhanced? Of course, it's going to be a big disadvantage. And I always use this analogy is when you look at the Major League Baseball, when it had its home run era, when Barry Bonds and Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire were hitting tons of home runs, and they all broke Babe Ruth's home run record, and that home run record stood for years. All of a sudden, 3 guys break that record with no problem and just surpass it like crazy, and they're hitting a home run every single game. Yeah, they all were caught doing steroids, right? They were all caught at the end doing steroids. So that's like me saying, oh, I can hang with Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa. If I just work really hard one day, I can hit just as many home runs as them. I'm like, no, you can't, because no one did break Babe Ruth's record naturally for years and years and years. It would be dumb of me to say, oh, I can have the same advantage if I just worked hard as them, right? So that's the thing about it. There is a disadvantage of being natural, but in bikini, that is the one division where you can capture it. It might take you years to capture it. It might take you 10 years of working out to have as much muscle as the bikini girls do now. But once you get to that point, you're kind of steroid free. You really don't need to take any more if you're holding that much muscle naturally. The rest of the thing, can you get lean enough now, is going to be the question. Can you get lean enough naturally? Some people can, some people can't. Some people have to really, really diet down hard to get that lean. And then there becomes another argument. Is it healthier for me to take something to get leaner, to help me get leaner, than it is for me to do 2 hours of cardio and eat 800 calories naturally, right? So that's a whole nother argument that we have to go into too. So yeah, can I talk about these things a little bit more? I could jump into them if you guys want to. Leave it in the comment section of this video if you want me to talk more about these things. I'm an open book. That's the reality of the sport. It's not a natural sport. It's not tested sport. So people are going to take these things, but nowhere near 98% of bikini pros are taking it. It's just not that high. Simply for the reason that you run out of the ability to put on more muscle. You can't just keep taking steroids year over year over year and maintaining that bikini physique if you're genetically that person who puts on a good amount of muscle, and you probably are genetically that person who puts on a good amount of muscle if you made it to the pro league in general. So that's the thing that you run into. So don't believe the rumors. Yes, a lot of girls do take PEDs. Yes, a lot of girls are also natural. And yes, there are also some fake natties that are bikini pros too. And they run into the problem of saying, hey, I'm natural. And then one day they realize they're not as competitive naturally. They start taking something, but they've already said I'm natural, and they get stuck because they can't go back on that now. So they just kind of stay with it. That happens too. There's fake natties everywhere. So anyway, with that being said, that was my first time I talked about it in like a year, but I have no problem. People are talking about it more. It is a thing. You can do it naturally. It's going to take you a lot longer to put on that much muscle naturally, and some people just don't want to wait. So I do say, do it healthy, do it right, get your labs drawn, talk to a coach who knows about these things. I heard of one coach just throwing girls on Winstrol without even seeing their labs and doing it for 16 weeks. A lot of bad things are going to happen if you're doing something that aggressive for long periods of time, and you absolutely don't need to go that crazy with it, especially in bikini. Bikini is always about, like, if you are going to do anything, it's going to be a little bit, not a lot. It's going to be just a kiss of help, not a full crazy steroidal cycle like you're going to run into in bodybuilding, right? It's totally different. It's a different sport on its own, and that's why you have specialists in bikini like me. It's a different art form, right? So anyway, went on that one. It's a good question. It looks like there's a lot of people that want to hear about it, so maybe we'll dive into those more. Leave it in the comment section if you want to hear more about that. Next question. This will be our last question, and I like it. It's more of a comment, and this question comes in from Daniela Joy, and she wrote in all capitals letters, maintaining your weight is more hardcore than doing 2 hours of cardio and sub 1,000 calories. I will absolutely agree with you, Daniela. The real hardcore people aren't the ones blowing up in the off season and having to starve themselves to get ready for a show. The real hardcore people, the people who deserve to be celebrated, are the people who are maintaining in the off season and keeping close to stage weight. Now, let's define that though, because the rest of her question says, give or take, some people have to gain 5 to 15 pounds of off stage weight, but you know what I mean. Control over your diet is everything. So let's get that straight, right? I don't think anyone should just stay stage weight. I think that that's not a good idea for anyone to stay stage weight. If you're getting that lean that you need to get to in bikini these days, you don't need to stay stage weight. That'd be kind of hard to do and pretty much impossible for most people to do. Even Ashley will go up a few pounds, like 5-ish pounds, but remember, she's competing all the time. So even when she's not in prep, she's kind of in prep because her off seasons are very short. So that's why she can do that. But for most people, the rule of thumb that I'll give them is about 10% above stage weight. That's a good place to maintain. So if you're 115 pounds on stage, 10% above that, 11 to 12 pounds, 11 and a half pounds is the 10%. So 12 pounds, that's super realistic. If you're having a longer off season, maybe going up to 15%, but going up 30 pounds, that type of thing, and doing a transformation into each show every single time is not hardcore. That's you being terrible on your diet in the off season. Let's call it what it is. If you're playing a sport and you're trying to excel at a sport, you should be practicing that sport all year, right? So I played hockey at a very high level. I didn't just take 6 months off, gain 30 pounds, and say, oh, I'm gonna start playing hockey again. I better start playing hockey for 16 weeks before my next tournament, right? It's not how it works. In any sport, you try to get better every single day. And if you're not, someone else is on you getting better than you that day. So it's important to capture every single day. Blowing up in the off season is a thing of the past, and we got to get out of that mindset. The hardcore people are the ones that are maintaining that close to stage weight, always within striking distance. Other than that, the transformation people that have to go diet super, super hard to get ready for a show because they keep blowing up off season, that's not hardcore. That's a lack of self-control in the off season. I absolutely agree with you, Daniela. Thank you for listening because I keep saying that over and over again. So anyway, keep your comments coming. I'm going to be doing more of these videos in the comments section. Leave them on my next YouTube video. I'll talk to you later.